Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about something that I've honestly heard quite a few times on the prayer line that I work at, as well as on my Instagram page, but also it was an assignment, so it was kind of fun to be able to answer that for an assignment. But it's honestly a question that I feel like a lot of people have heard before, or, maybe even believed at one point themselves. And that's the question of, was Jesus really just a good person or a moral teacher, or was he something more? And honestly, I kind of want to start by saying I get it. I get why some people think that. I mean, if you look at the things Jesus actually thought and taught, like loving your families, loving your enemies, forgive people, caring for the poor, show humility, etc., a lot of it's true. A lot of it's good advice. And it's the kind of teaching that people even outside the faith respect, even atheists. And I've had somebody tell me before, I don't really need to be religious to read what Jesus said and follow it as good advice. So I understand why somebody would say, why can't we appreciate him as a great teacher and leave it there? It's a valid question. It's really completely valid. But for me, the more I looked into what Jesus said, the harder it became to keep him in that small little category, because Jesus doesn't teach moral lessons alone. He makes some serious claims in the meantime about himself and about God. And I think that's where a lot of the tension comes into this. Like, I mean, if you imagine today, imagine somebody, walked up and said, I am one with God. I am God. I existed before everything. I'm the only way anyone can know God. We wouldn't just necessarily sit there and think, wow, he's really a good teacher. We would think one of two things: either he's telling the truth or he's crazy. And I think most of us would say, he's crazy and not right in the head. There really is no middle ground for something like that, and that's exactly what happens with Jesus. For example, in John 10:30, he says, I and the Father are one. That's not just him pointing people to God, that's him identifying himself with God and as God. That's incredibly personal and really direct. And then in John 14:6, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That's not just guidance. He's not just saying, here's one good path or here's another path. No, he's saying, I am the only path. And like I said, that forces a decision. Because if someone today made those same claims, we wouldn't be comfortable labeling them as just a good teacher. We'd probably label them as crazy. And so for me, it started to feel inconsistent to just say that about Jesus, because good teachers don't normally make those types of claims about themselves. They point away from themselves and towards the truth or towards what they had been originally taught. But Jesus points to himself as the truth. So that really leaves us with the question, what do we do with him? Because if he's not telling the truth, then it's hard to call him a good teacher, since he would be misleading people in a very serious way. But if he is telling the truth, then he's not just a teacher, he's something far greater. And I think that's why this type of conversation really matters. It's not just about putting a label on Jesus, it's about taking him seriously in what he actually said about himself. And I think a good follow up question you can ask somebody who poses this question to you is, what do you do with the things he claimed about himself? Because those claims really don't let you stay neutral or ignore it. And for me personally, that's why I decided to take a deeper look into it, not just at his teaching, but as who he actually says he is. And honestly, what I came to is, at the end of the day, Jesus didn't ask to be admired, he asked to be believed. And so I'd love to hear how you would answer this question if someone asked you, or said to you that they believe that he was a good teacher but doesn't believe he's the Messiah. And I'd love to hear what you have to say.